Intelligence is not a guarantee of progress. It's often the precise mechanism that prevents it. There's a pattern visible across high-performing organizations. The analyst with the sharpest frameworks remains an analyst. The strategist with perfect theoretical models never ships. The founder with encyclopedic market knowledge watches less informed competitors capture the opportunity first. This isn't coincidence, it's architecture. The intelligence trap is a structural phenomenon where cognitive capability becomes inversely correlated with execution velocity. The same mental systems that enable deep analysis create barriers to decisive action. The same pattern recognition abilities that identify risk prevent calculated movement. This isn't about intelligence being overrated. It's about intelligent people systematically optimizing for the wrong performance metrics. They measure depth when the market rewards speed. They pursue theoretical completeness when the environment demands iterative testing. They architect perfect systems while competitors ship imperfect versions and iterate. The professional cost is measurable. Delayed promotions while less credentialed colleagues advance, market opportunities captured by faster moving competitors, expertise that remains undermonetized because the threshold for ready never arrives. The intelligence trap operates through three interconnected mechanisms. Each represents a cognitive strength weaponized against its owner. Mechanism 1. Complexity substitution. Intelligent professionals substitute analytical complexity for strategic clarity. When faced with a decision, they expand the variables rather than constraining them. They build comprehensive models when simple heuristics would produce superior outcomes. This isn't rigor. It's avoidance architecture disguised as thoroughness. The mind generates complexity to delay the discomfort of commitment. Each additional variable provides rational justification for deferring action. The analysis feels productive because intellectual effort is being expended, but productivity is measured in outcomes, not inputs. Consider the knowledge worker building the perfect content strategy. 6 months of competitive analysis, detailed audience segmentation, comprehensive platform research, 0 published content. The strategy document becomes a shield against market feedback, the very feedback necessary for actual strategy refinement. Mechanism 2. Intellectual validation. Dependency. High IQ professionals develop dependency on intellectual validation rather than market validation. They optimize for theoretical soundness over empirical testing. They seek approval from other intelligent analysts rather than feedback from the people who actually pay for solutions. This creates a fatal feedback loop. The professional presents ideas to other intellectuals who evaluate based on analytical rigor rather than execution potential. The ideas become more sophisticated and less actionable. Recognition comes from peers who also don't ship, reinforcing the pattern. The entrepreneur who spends 18 months perfecting a business plan, validated by other entrepreneurs who never launched. The consultant who builds frameworks, praised by other consultants, but never tested against client ROI. The analyst whose reports win internal awards, but generate no strategic decisions. Mechanism 3. Overthinking as risk management. Intelligent people use extended analysis as a risk mitigation tool, not recognizing that delayed action is itself the highest risk position. They calculate downside scenarios with precision while ignoring the opportunity cost of inaction. This reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of professional environments. In theoretical domains, thoroughness reduces error. In execution environments, speed of iteration determines success. The market doesn't reward the participant who would have made the perfect decision given infinite information. It rewards the participant who makes adequate decisions with available information and refines through implementation. The professional who analyzes 10 business models for 6 months, while a competitor tests all 10 in 6 weeks and identifies the winner by month 2. Same starting point, identical intellectual capability, opposite outcomes. The psychological foundation of the intelligence trap rests on identity protection mechanisms and status framework confusion. Identity protection through intellectual performance. Intelligent professionals construct identity around analytical capability. This creates an asymmetric risk profile where being wrong about execution threatens core identity in ways that never attempting execution does not. Consider the cognitive load. If intelligence is your primary value signal, then actions which might reveal intellectual limitation become existentially threatening. It's safer to remain in analysis, a domain where your competence is proven, than to enter execution, where market feedback might contradict your self-assessment. This isn't conscious, it's automated identity defense. The mind generates rational justifications for delay. Need more data. Market conditions aren't optimal. The framework isn't complete. Each sounds legitimate because the underlying anxiety about performance exposure remains unconscious. Research in behavioral economics demonstrates that highly intelligent individuals show greater susceptibility to sunk cost fallacy precisely because their analytical frameworks make current investment visible and future opportunity cost abstract. They can calculate what they've invested in analysis with precision. The cost of continued inaction remains theoretical. Status framework confusion. Intelligent professionals often operate in environments where intellectual status and execution status are separated. Academia rewards analytical contribution independent of practical implementation. Corporate environments reward strategic thinking independent of operational outcomes. Consulting values framework sophistication independent of client results. This creates professionals who achieve intellectual status without developing execution capability. They receive validation for analysis quality, not outcome quality. The feedback systems in their environment actively reinforce the intelligence trap. The investment analyst who builds sophisticated valuation models praised by colleagues but produces below market returns. The strategist whose presentations win executive approval but whose recommendations never reach implementation. They're succeeding in the status game they're being measured on while failing at the performance game that determines actual value creation. Escaping the intelligence trap requires architectural reconstruction, not motivational intervention. The solution isn't working harder within the existing cognitive framework. It's replacing the framework entirely. Framework Component 1, Execution Threshold Calibration. Establish explicit quality thresholds for action triggers. Define good enough to test separate from theoretically complete. Intelligent professionals default to pursuing theoretical completeness because they can see all the ways current thinking is incomplete. This is precisely why threshold definition must be external and explicit. Implementation architecture. Before beginning analysis on any decision or project, define the minimum viable information set required for first action. Write it down. Make it external. When that threshold is reached, execute. Additional analysis is prohibited until market feedback from the first execution is collected. This feels uncomfortable because it violates the internal drive for comprehensive understanding. That discomfort is the mechanism working. The goal isn't comfort, it's calibrated risk-taking that prioritizes learning velocity over analytical completeness. Framework Component 2, Market Feedback Priority. Restructure validation sources. Shift from pure intellectual validation to market empirical validation. The question isn't whether other intelligent people find your framework sophisticated. The question is whether people with actual problems pay for your solution. This requires deliberate environment restructuring. If you're a knowledge worker, test your frameworks with clients who have budget authority. not peers who appreciate theoretical elegance. If you're building a product, ship to users who can churn, not beta testers who provide encouraging feedback. The data architecture changes everything. Market feedback is binary. They pay or they don't. They use it or they don't. They promote you or they don't. Intellectual feedback is continuous. This is somewhat interesting. This has potential. This needs more development. Binary feedback forces decisions. Continuous feedback enables infinite refinement. Framework Component 3, Iteration Velocity Metrics. Replace depth metrics with velocity metrics. Stop measuring how thoroughly you've analyzed something. Start measuring how quickly you're testing hypotheses and integrating feedback. Establish iteration velocity as the primary performance indicator. Count executed tests per month, not hours spent in analysis. Track decisions made and revised based on outcome data, not comprehensiveness of pre-decision analysis. This metric shift dissolves the intelligence trap because it removes the reward structure for extended analysis. You can't optimize iteration velocity through more thorough planning. You optimize it through faster testing and tighter feedback loops. The intelligent professional's analytical capability now serves speed rather than preventing it. Framework Component 4, Productive Constraint Implementation. Deploy artificial constraints that force execution before analysis feels complete. Time boxing is insufficient because intelligent people negotiate with themselves effectively. The constraint must be external and consequential. Public commitment mechanisms, scheduled presentations requiring specific deliverables, financial commitments that create loss if action isn't taken, partnership agreements with defined timelines. The architecture must make inaction more costly than imperfect action. This isn't artificial pressure for motivation. It's structural design that removes the option to optimize indefinitely. The intelligent professional's capability for identifying improvement opportunities becomes irrelevant when the deadline makes shipping mandatory regardless of remaining imperfections. The intelligence trap isn't an intellectual failure, it's an architectural one. High cognitive capability creates high resolution awareness of complexity, uncertainty, and risk. This is valuable in domains where thoroughness determines outcomes. It becomes actively harmful in domains where iteration velocity determines outcomes. Most professional environments reward iteration velocity. Most intelligent professionals optimize for thoroughness. The solution isn't reducing intelligence or embracing recklessness. It's reconstructing the execution architecture to deploy intelligence toward testing velocity rather than analytical completeness. It's building systems where your capability for deep analysis serves rapid learning cycles instead of preventing them. The professionals who escape the intelligence trap don't think less rigorously. They think rigorously about different variables. Not is this analysis complete, but what's the fastest path to market feedback? Not what could go wrong, but what's the minimum viable test that produces learning? This represents a fundamental reorientation from valuing the quality of your thinking to valuing the quality of your learning systems, from optimizing for being right eventually to optimizing for being wrong quickly and adjusting, from intellectual performance to market performance. The market doesn't care about the sophistication of your analysis. It cares about the value of your output. Your compensation doesn't follow your analytical capability. It follows your execution outcomes. Your professional trajectory isn't determined by what you could do with perfect information. It's determined by what you actually do with imperfect information. The intelligence trap persists because escaping it requires abandoning the very behaviors that generated previous success and status. Analysis did serve you well in academic environments. Thoroughness did differentiate you in early career. The framework worked until it didn't. What's required isn't motivation to work harder, it's permission to ship before you're comfortable. It's structural acceptance that market learning is more valuable than analytical certainty. It's recognition that your edge isn't superior analysis. Everyone has access to information. Your edge is superior execution velocity. Intelligence remains the foundation, but intelligence deployed toward infinite preparation produces stagnation. Intelligence deployed toward rapid iteration produces compounding advantage. Same cognitive capability, opposite professional trajectories. The difference is entirely architectural. This isn't an invitation to subscribe for motivation. This is a structural decision about information architecture. If you're optimizing for execution velocity over analytical perfection, if you're building learning systems rather than planning systems, if you recognize that professional value follows outcomes rather than inputs, then you're operating in the same framework we're building here. Subscribing means you're committed to upgrading your internal operating system. You're not looking for encouragement. You're looking for architectural precision in how high performers think, decide, and execute. What's one decision or project where you can identify the intelligence trap operating, where your analysis is sophisticated, your framework is sound, but execution remains perpetually deferred? What would change if you defined good enough to test explicitly and committed to shipping within 72 hours? Share your specific case. This isn't a motivational community. This is an observation network for professionals examining their own cognitive architecture.